Hi guys, welcome again, and this time around we are doing Rivergreen vs Promenade Peak review series, and this is the third of our trilogy. So firstly we have the Promenade Peak individual condo review, followed by Rivergreen condo review, and this is the last of our trilogy series, Rivergreen vs Promenade Peak. This video itself will be very numbers driven. If you are looking around this area, right, there's a high chance that you'll be considering between these two because they are so close to each other, and naturally you want to get the best deal out of these two, right? To be honest, many people will be saying that Rivergreen will be the easiest choice among the two of them, and I agree to a certain extent. But the question is, right, if so many people agree on this, then how will you manage, right, if your queue number is really not between here and not between there? And what is the price point to pay for Promenade Peak if my queue over here is better than compared to Rivergreen? Or should I wait for Rivergreen and possibly pay more for Rivergreen itself because the queue number is more behind? And how much more should I pay for Rivergreen if I really want to wait? So these are the things that actually will be floating around in your mind, and it will be very confusing that day. So it's extremely important to be clear at which point of timing, right? What are the pricing should I choose? And layout versus layout, what is the price gap that I want to maintain, not just between the condo itself, but also between these two condos in terms of their layout and the price gap. And if you can be very clear about this, right, you will be able to make the best choice on that day, and this is what this video aims to do for you. So for now, besides the price point, I will touch very briefly in terms of the other details first. So I will touch a bit on the location here. And for this, right, I actually purposely screenshot the map over this side. Okay, why? Because the reason when you see purple color over here, and this is the street directory map, right? And then over here, you can see over to the Orchard and Somerset area. So in one picture, you can see the shopping zone, and you can also see the heartland areas over here. In terms of the locality, actually, if you are talking about Rivergreen location, what I like about it is that it's almost directly connected to the MRT itself. And then when you look across the area, it's definitely much closer to the Orchard and the Robertson Quay area. When we come over to Promenade Peak, this is accessible by two MRTs, 𝒊𝒏𝒈𝒂𝒑𝒐𝒓𝒆 and Great World itself. But over here, we can also see that in terms of the local conveniences, let's say if I want to go to Kopitiam or if I need to go to the neighborhood supermarkets, right? We have it just right beside at Zion Riverside Food Center, and as well as the food courts and the coffee shops over at the 𝒊𝒏𝒈𝒂𝒑𝒐𝒓𝒆 and the Tiong Bahru area. So I would say in terms of the local convenience, let's say for your day in, day out, you know, if you want to go to coffee shop or if you want to go to supermarket, then definitely Promenade Peak in terms of the walking distance is much shorter. You can walk over to Zion Riverside Food Center. You can even go over to the, shop houses Boon Tong Kee over here, and as well as the coffee shops in the heartland areas of Tiong Bahru. Whereas for Rivergreen, right, same thing, you can also walk over here. But to reach over this side, right, then the walk can be quite far already. So over here, the nearest food area and supermarket area will be over to the Killiney side. We have a couple of F&Bs over here. The prawn noodles over at Killiney Road is very nice, and we have Killiney Kopitiam over this side as well. In terms of the access to Singapore River, you can see that Promenade Peak is just right along the river itself. The preference, right, is really up to you. But for me, I prefer the locality of Promenade Peak because I'm more able to assess things that I need to do on a daily basis. Moving on to the project details. So both projects over here, Rivergreen, Promenade Peak, right? They have almost similar unit count. Rivergreen at 524 units, while Promenade Peak have 596 units. In terms of the car park lots, right, Rivergreen have only 269, while Promenade Peak has 477 car park lots. So with this fewer amount of car park lots available, right, I think that is also one of the reasons that contributed to Rivergreen building smaller units, probably a bit more of 1-2 bedders. Because let's say if I have a 3-bedroom or if I have a 4-bedroom, and if I'm staying in River Valley area, right, there's a very high chance that I own a car as well. So that's why over for Promenade Peak, you can see that the unit sizes that they built are also bigger. Over here, you get the 3-bedroom premiums with private lift, 4 bedrooms, and even 5 bedrooms, while Rivergreen ranges from 1 to 4 bedrooms, but the 4-bedroom larger size is at 980 square feet. Coming to the unit mix, right, both of them actually focus a lot on the 2 bedrooms. For Promenade Peak, it's about 320 units, While for Rivergreen, we're coming in at about 280 units. Rivergreen also has more one bedrooms, around 100 units compared to Promenade Peak. And not only that, Promenade Peak also has bigger 3 bedrooms, ranging from 1001 to almost 1002, which is already larger than the 4 bedrooms in Rivergreen. So you can see that it caters to different groups of people. In terms of the look and the perspective of the condo, right? Both of them try to do something very clean, but also unique in a certain sense. So when you take a look closely at Rivergreen's facade, right? You will notice that at certain floor levels, the look is like that. And then at certain levels again, right? You will see that, this part, right, actually shift to here. So effectively for Rivergreen, right, over at this facing as well as the other side, right, they actually have a different unit type over at these levels. This is what I mean whereby, it looks the same but it looks different. The concept is the same for Promenade Peak as well. So over here we can see the 2 collections, Promenade Collection, and at the higher floor, it looks like a totally different condo over here at Promenade Suites. So that's the kind of design element that they have when they are building these 2 condos itself. When it comes to the facilities and the land size, right? Actually, Rivergreen's land size is slightly higher at 100,000 square feet, while Promenade Peak is about 90 over 1,000 square feet. But because of the shape of Rivergreen's land, even though it's bigger, right, it forces the developer to design it in such a way to maximize the use. So over here and over here, they did not waste it. They have done the clubhouse function rooms over here as well to sort of fully use the space. Here, right, you can even squeeze in a tennis court for this condo itself. Whereas for Promenade Peak, the shape of the land is quite slightly more regular. So we have the main footprint of the block over here, and we have the facilities over at this side and this side. They did not waste the space in the sky as well. So for Rivergreen, we can see, because it's only 36th floor, actually 36th floor is very high already lah. They do have the sky loft and the enclave, but because Promenade Peak is so tall, right, at level 60, where you can see over here, they managed to build in extra facilities. Like for example, in level 22, you have the Cabana Cove and the floating hammock. And at level 43, this is the level which clears a lot of nearby buildings. We do have like the gym, and then also the climbing zone and calisthenic zone. Even at the rooftop at 63rd floor, we have a sky pool as well. When I round up the overall facilities and the facade, right, maybe this one would be able to stand out more. Because firstly, this one is already along the main road and it's very tall. And let's say if I have a tenant, maybe when I bring him to see both, right? I think when I bring the tenant to see this and this, right, there's a very high chance that this unit will get rented out before this one. Okay, but key thing here is the price that we pay. So if the price here is lower than here, and if I don't have to charge a higher rent compared to Promenade Peak, then does this actually make more sense? We'll find out a bit more later. Now moving on to the block plan. For Rivergreen, unfortunately, because of the boomerang shape of the building, right? And the key views that they want to focus here is more towards the east and the south. So they have no choice but to orientate it in such a way that, they want to capture the east side facing. But because of this, right, there will also be a west side facing. Based on these developers' records, right, usually there's a price difference of about 2% between the west facing and the east facing. When it comes to Promenade Peak, they have more of the 360-degree facing. So we have the northwards, southwards, westwards, and eastwards. And that is good because they are able to give you more choices in terms of the views. So even though this side is west facing, right, when we look out over here, it will tend to look over something that is unblocked compared to Rivergreen. But for Rivergreen, you can say that, because it's blocked, so the west sun won't affect you too much directly, right? Over here, we will briefly discuss on how did we derive the pricing. So the high rises in CCR, those that we observe, right, they have an average per floor jump of about 0.35 to 0.37%. And this is the one for OL Hill residences. When we come to Clarke Quay, Canning Hill Piers, the per floor jump is slightly lower, around 0.25%. But at a higher floor, and in this case, after 25th floor, right, because they clear these blocks over here, most of these units here will get a totally unblocked view. That's why levels around this region, the per floor jump is slightly higher at 0.5%. They balance it by having a lower per floor jump here and by having a higher per floor jump at the higher floor levels. When we take these two and combine, right, we try to come up with a pricing that is associated for Promenade Peak. Because Promenade Peak has something similar to Canning Hill Piers in the sense that once it reaches 43rd floor, we clear most of the other blocks around, and then anything from 43rd to 63rd floor will likely come with very good unblocked views. This will be the price increment that we'll be thinking of after we study Canning Hill Piers and Orwell Hill. And now the key question is, what price should I give for the top floor and the bottom floor? So the easiest way for us to guess or to predict is actually to predict the top floor of the development. Then from there, we do the markdowns. So for example, 63rd floor, we do a markdown of 0.5%. Then once it reaches 43rd floor, we do a continued markdown of 0.3%. So that is how we approach the pricing prediction for Promenade Peak itself. And from here, we have different thoughts in mind. Initially, right, we were thinking that, hey, the one bedroom top floor, maybe we want to rate it at 3450 PSF for the top floor. And then for 2 bedrooms, the PSF for the top floor will be 3004. And for the 3 bedrooms, the top floor will be 3003. So when we do the price increment, when we move downwards, right, from 0.5% for the Promenade Suites collection, and then when we move down using 0.35% all the way to level 1, our initial price prediction for the 1 bedroom starting from was 2,700 per square foot, and for the 2 bedrooms is 2,660, and for the 3 bedrooms is 2,586 PSF. This will give me a quantum of 1.4, 1.7 and 2.6. But just last night, the developers actually released the starting price and we have adjusted accordingly. So in the next slide, I'll show you what is the adjustments made. We can see here, right, because we gauge the bottom floor based on what the top floor is. So for the 1 bedrooms, it's pretty close. Starting price of about 1.4x million compared to our prediction of 1.42 million. But you can see for the 2 and the 3 bedrooms, right? 2 bedroom, previously we predicted the top floor price to be 3,004. In this case now, it is 3,005. In fact, more than 3,005. And then for the 3 bedrooms, the top floor price that here will be 3,480 compared to the previous prediction of 3,003. So what does this mean? It means that actually the developer for Promenade Peak has a lot of confidence in their 2 bedrooms because their starting from price is higher and their top floor PSF will likely be higher than the 1 bedroom. And this shows that, you know, they think that people are going to actually have a very strong demand for the 2 bedrooms. And in fact, even their 3 bedrooms demand will be very strong as well. So now we come to Rivergreen. Because Rivergreen does not have much differences in terms of the view compared to Promenade Peak. Because Promenade Peak, we have different views from the 2nd floor to the 43rd floor. And anything above 43rd floor to 63th floor is totally different already. But for Rivergreen, more or less it should be similar. We have decided to use a more uniform increment. That means there's no changes when it reaches the top floor. Initially, we were thinking that, hey, should we use 0.38% or should we use 0.5% in terms of their per floor increment? But for us, after thinking through, right, because Rivergreen has smaller units, so if I use smaller units and my per floor increment is only 0.3%, right, it's very hard for me to so-called earn money out of this. I have decided to do an increment of 0.55% based on all these factors. Of course, on the launch day, we will know the actual increment and we will change the price accordingly. But for now, what we want to do is to do all these thoughts for you to gauge so that we can map out the pricing at each floor level. Then we can come to a decision whereby, hey, at this Q number, what is the pricing is going to be? So should I choose between Rivergreen or Promenade Peak? That is the important thing that we want to see for now first. Moving to the 1 bedrooms, based on the predictions that we have just now, that means for Promenade Peak, right, we have the different pricings that we have predicted over here, and I'll be sticking more closely to the released starting PSF from developer, which is around here. So based on that, we have actually adjusted and recalibrated our price matrix. So this will be the new price matrix that we are actually coming out with based on the floor level, and this will be the one for Rivergreen. So Rivergreen will be starting from about this PSF 2860, while Promenade Peak will be starting at 2664. So will the size make a difference or not? Because higher PSF here, smaller size, whereas for Promenade Peak, lower PSF but bigger size. So let's see the difference. I have laid out the 1+ studies and the 1-bedroom over here. So we have the 1-bedroom for Rivergreen, the 1+ study as well for Rivergreen, 1+ study for Promenade Peak, and the 2-bed 1-bath for Rivergreen. Important thing we need to understand here, all these are different products at different sizes. So 1-bedroom here, Rivergreen 420 square feet. Whereas for the 1+ study, for Rivergreen is 452, but yet Promenade Peak is 527 square feet. And then for Rivergreen 2-bed 1-bath, it will be 527 square feet. So this is my 1-bath collection. Now we want to understand, right, what is the price that we should be paying in terms of the differences between every one of these. Okay, because all these have limited units. Sometimes maybe this one sell until left high floor. Should I go for this one or not? Okay, or does this one make more sense if I have low floor available? I think that is very, very important for us to understand. For example, let's start from the 1-bedroom and the 1+ study. Okay, typically in the market, the price gap between the 1-bedroom and the 1+ study is about 150,000 to 180,000. Since this is the case, right? If Rivergreen 1+ study has very similar layout to the 1-bedroom over here, I will take a difference of 150,000. That means if the 1+ study is more than 150,000 more expensive than Rivergreen 1-bedroom, I will take the 1-bedroom. If the price gap is less than 150,000, I will take the 1+ study. Okay? But in this case, right, the layout is also not totally similar. We can see 1-bedroom, right? It actually has a tuck-in kitchen. But the 1+ study does not have a tuck-in kitchen. So how should we weigh the pricing, right? I went to do some research and I found out that maybe we should so-called between the difference of these two, right? I will deduct away 50,000 from Rivergreen because this one doesn't have a tuck-in kitchen, but it has one more study. So to put it this way, it will be 150,000 minus 50,000. So the price difference between these two units should be 100,000. Okay, this is to account for Rivergreen 1+ study having one more study room, but not having a tuck-in kitchen. So if the pricing is less than 100,000, I will go for Rivergreen 1+ study. If the pricing is more than 100,000, I will go for this one. And it also depends on the floor level. Moving on from this, right, what is the extra price that I should pay for a bigger 1+ study, but this time around in Promenade Peak? To keep things simple, I've set 50,000 gap between the 1+ study here and the 1+ study here. You can choose to take your own figures, it's up to you to decide. But just for calculation purposes, I've decided to use 50,000 gap between these two units. So as mentioned, anything more than 50,000 gap, I will pick 1+ study Rivergreen. Anything less than 50,000 gap, I will pick the Promenade Peak 1+ study. And last one, the difference between 1+ study and the 2-bed 1-bath. The typical price difference in the CCR market between 1+ study and the 2-bed 1-bath, right, is around 200,000. But in this situation, as we mentioned, you know that the Rivergreen units are small. So instead of 200,000, I will be using a 150,000 gap between the 2-bed 1-bath and the 1+ study. So these are the few pricings that we should be looking at in terms of the price gap. Of course, if you don't agree with this, you can always set your own pricing in terms of what is the price difference between the different layouts. Over here, as I mentioned in the Rivergreen video as well, my favorite unit type among all these will be the 1+ study. Why? Because typically, price difference between 1-bedroom and 1+ study is 100,000 between these two. And the price difference between a 1+ study and a 2-bed 1-bath normally is around 200,000. So here 100,000, here 200,000. Okay, this means that the price gap here is bigger. But in terms of the space, right, here can be quite similar to here as well. So normally what I've seen in the resale market, right, is that actually not all the cheap ones sell first in the resale market. It can be that people prefer this. Because they are already staying in town, they have to so-called accommodate by buying a smaller unit just to stay in town. So if I can get something slightly bigger, and yet the top-up is small here compared to here, right? Then this one will become the best seller among these three types. So in this regard, my Rivergreen 1+ study will be my top choice. Even though it doesn't have a tuck-in kitchen, I've accounted a 50,000 deduction in terms of the price gap to account for this. So later on, we look at the pricing to see if this makes sense. From here, right, don't be confused by all these tables. Okay, these tables are actually drawn from the tables here. Okay, let's say for example, Rivergreen, lower floor, blue color, mid floor, purple color, top floor, pink color, and then Promenade Peak, low floor, yellow color, mid floor, pale orange, and the top floor, orange color. So all these are actually mapped out, and I purposely never mapped out, like for example, Rivergreen 452, 452, 452, then Promenade Peak 527, 527, 527. I didn't map out this way because that will not be my flow of my purchase. So from this, right, my thinking towards here is that I will pick the best layout first, which is the Rivergreen 452 square feet. Then from here, I will gauge what is the price difference that I should pay between here and here, here and here, here and here. So that is how I actually do my mapping. From here, right, the best price Rivergreen 1+ study will obviously be on the lower floors. So these start at a price of possibly 1.29 to 1.37 million for 2nd to 13th floor. Okay, and then when I check for the Rivergreen 1 bedroom, right, remember the price difference should be about 100,000. These two are quite similar. So for example, 10th floor of Rivergreen 1+ study, 1.35 million. It will be around 100,000 difference between the same floor level Rivergreen 1 bedroom. So my choice, right, okay, when you see this chart, it will be like that. Choosing between these two. After that, it will go to zone 2 green color, choosing between these two. Then if all these are no more, I will go to zone 2. I'll choose between these two, followed by here. Okay, so if all these don't have, then I will go to zone 3 and compare these two. So this is how the flow chart actually works. Coming back to what I was explaining just now, right? The entry price for the 1+ study will be around here. And from here, right, I see that the 1 bedroom, the price gap is actually within the 100,000 range. So I put this together with the same level as my Rivergreen 1+ study low floor. Next comes the next category already, which is my Rivergreen 1+ study mid floor here. So why did I put my Promenade Peak before Rivergreen as my first choice? Because you can see here, right, the price difference of Rivergreen and Promenade Peak, as we have seen from the previous slide here, the price that I set myself is 50,000. So over here we can see, for example, at level 2 of Promenade Peak is 1.4 million. But when we go to Rivergreen, right, the price over here at 14th floor is 1.38 million already. So the price gap is only 20,000. In this case, right, when the price gap is less than 50,000, Promenade Peak will be my first choice. So that's why after we clear zone 1, my top choice for zone 2 will be Promenade Peak. And this will be at the lower floor level, but you can see that the price difference, as long as it's less than 50,000, I will choose Promenade Peak. Then it comes to Rivergreen. So you can see, right, how come my Rivergreen 1+ study is here, but my 1 bedroom is over here instead of here? Because by right, I should buy the cheap one ma. Remember just now, right, that the price difference between the 1+ study and the 1 bedroom should be 100,000. So it's still the same. 14th floor Rivergreen 1.38 million compared to Rivergreen 1 bedroom 1.28 million. It is 100,000. By right, it's supposed to be here. But because the 2-bed 1-bath lower floor pricing make it very attractive, that's why, right, the ranking of Rivergreen 2-bed 1-bath is even before the ranking of Rivergreen 1 bedroom over here. Why? Because the price difference of the Rivergreen 1+ study versus the price difference of Rivergreen 2-bed 1-bath by right to be 150,000. Okay, but in this case, 1.38 million here versus 1.5 million here. So the price difference effectively becomes only 120,000, which is less than my calculated price gap of 150,000. If you don't know all these numbers, right, by right, let's say if you don't know, this will be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 ma, correct? But now when we have these price gaps in place, right, our order changed already leh. In fact, this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. And it's very dynamic. So during the launch day, prices can change. Or if the price increment is not 0.5%, we have to adjust accordingly. And there's a possibility that all this might be rearranged again. So all these things should be very clear before you even step into the booking room. So that let's say when it comes to our turn, if we don't have these two, okay, instead of most people, which I think that they will choose this, I will choose this instead. Because this gives me more value for money. And don't forget that let's say if you are buying the Rivergreen 1 bedroom, right, you are buying above the lower floor already. Which means that you are already paying higher than your lower floor. Which is nothing wrong. But if let's say Promenade Peak, if I can get a bigger size at good value, then why not, right? As mentioned just now, this should be the order of the selection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? And once it reaches a certain price point, in this case, For Promenade Peak, I don't want the price for the 1+ study to exceed 1.54. And for Rivergreen, I don't want the 2-bed 1-bath to exceed the price of 1.7. So once all these are clear, right? Once I reach the prices here, right? I will skip these two already. I will move to the next chart. So this is the first chart that I'll be seeing. And moving on, now we see the 2 bathrooms. Okay, so similarly, we have the pricings over here. For Rivergreen, more or less the same that I've used for this development in terms of the per floor increment. So these figures that you see over here, I'll be using them for the 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and the 4-bedrooms. Okay, but for Promenade Peak, it's a lot more dynamic because their top floor units at 63rd floor are different. So the corresponding PSF will be different for the 1-bed, 2-bed, even the 2+ study is different compared to the 2-bedroom in terms of the PSF in every floor level. So over here, we have Rivergreen 2-bed, 2-bath at 603 square feet. For easy reference, right, because Promenade Peak has a total of 4 2-bed, 2-bath, but because of the size difference, right, I've decided to use only these two sizes because it's a closer comparison with our Rivergreen 2-bed, 2-bath over here. We have the 657 square feet and the 667 square feet. If you want a more in-depth comparison between these two layouts, right, then you can see my first series, which is the Promenade Peak project review. But here, I'm just going to go through very quickly because main difference you see here between Rivergreen and Promenade Peak, besides the size, right, is the tuck-in kitchen. So we have a tuck-in kitchen over here for Rivergreen 2-bed, 2-bath, but we do not have it over here for the Promenade Peak 2-bed, 2-bath. So what is the price difference that I should be paying if, let's say, one has tuck-in kitchen and one doesn't have tuck-in kitchen? Because in the market, right, between a unit with tuck-in kitchen for 2-bed, 2-bath and a price for a unit without tuck-in kitchen, right, difference is usually around 100,000 to 200,000. Okay, because Rivergreen is smaller, this 100,000 to 200,000, I will mark it down to 80k. As long as the price difference here is more than 80,000, I will pick Rivergreen. But if the price difference is less than 80,000, I will pick Promenade Peak. Because after all, I'm still getting a bigger size, and that means that my per square foot potentially can be lower as well. And from here, right, we can see our star layout is the 603 square feet 2-bed, 2-bath over here. So same thing, my priority will be on the better layout first, and then from there I will gauge what is the price difference that I should pay based on the best layout. So over here we can see I put the entry price Rivergreen 2-bed, 2-bath over here. Just nice because Promenade Peak, remember we said that the price difference should not be more than 80,000. Just nice, right? Here also the price gap is around 80,000. In fact, at certain floor levels, right, the price gap can be less than 80,000. So we need to see at which price point based on our queue number. If the price gap is less than 80,000, I will choose Promenade Peak because it's larger and you have more facilities in terms for the development. My first consideration will be over these units here, up to the 13th floor for Rivergreen, 15th floor for the Promenade Peak, 657 square feet, 2-bed, 2-bath. Once these two is cleared, then I will move on to the mid-floor Rivergreen, 2-bed, 2-bath, coming at these prices. And same thing, if the price difference between the 2-bed, 2-bath, 603 square feet, if more than 80,000 compared to Promenade Peak 2-bed, 2-bath, then I will take the Rivergreen. Between 603 square feet versus the 667 square feet on the lower floor, right? In this case, if the price difference over here is 20,000, I will take Promenade Peak. So that is how my decisions should be made. And at this price range, right, we will come to the higher floors. Let's say, for example, Rivergreen, right, we will hit 3,004. That might give me a quantum of 2 million, which is similar to Promenade Peak high floor as well. At this kind of price points, right, I may consider to just skip this and go to the bigger 2-bed, 2-bath in Promenade Peak, which I'll show you in the next slide. The bigger 2-bed, 2-bath in Promenade Peak are 678 square feet and 689 square feet. I'll be using it to compare with Rivergreen's 2+ study at 657 square feet. So the study room, right, the price difference in CCR usually is between 200,000 to 300,000. And same thing in this case, to make it safe, I will just set the price difference of 100,000 to be the price difference between Rivergreen 2-bed plus study and the 2-bed 2-bath in Promenade Peak. So if I have a budget of between 1.8 million to 2.1 million, I will choose between here or possibly the smaller 2-bed 2-baths. Okay, and we can see the price matrix here. Because I like the Rivergreen 2+ study more, so this will be my first choice selection when it comes to choosing between a 2+ study here or 2-bed 2-bath in Promenade Peak. This will be under my zone 1. And remember, right, the price difference here should be 150,000. At any point of time, between these three layout types, right, my favorite or my top choice will be the Rivergreen 2+ study. Okay, unless the price difference is 150,000 or more, then I will choose the other one. But otherwise, my flow will be Rivergreen, followed by Promenade Peak 678 square feet, 689 square feet, and then we go to the Rivergreen mid-floor units. So the flow should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I will come to a crossroads when my Rivergreen 2-bed plus study will be coming in at around 2.2 million. I will compare with the bigger 2+ study over at Promenade Peak, and I will also compare with the 3-bedroom in Rivergreen first. If really no choice, then I will take this. Because sometimes people can actually end up buying the bigger unit first. Once I hit the high floor Promenade Peak, 678 square feet and 689 square feet, right, I will move on to the bigger unit types already. Now we'll move on to Rivergreen 3-bedroom, as well as comparing with Promenade's 2+ study. Because the sizes here are very similar, based on our layout comparison, I will prefer Rivergreen's 872 square feet because I think it's just nice. And if I compare with the 2+ study at Promenade Peak, right, I feel that even though they have sizes up to 797 square feet, I don't really get a proper 3-bed 2-bath, and in fact the study room here can be quite hard to enclose lah. Naturally, my preference will gravitate more towards the Rivergreen 3-bedrooms. If the study rooms for the Promenade Peak can be enclosed easily, maybe I will give them more points. But ultimately, let's say if I'm buying for investment, the price is actually still the most important to me lah. And when I put this 872 square feet as my first choice, right, I realized that the smaller 3-bed 2-bath, right, at 786 square feet, when I plot the same PSF, right, the price difference actually amounts up to 260,000. So for example, here, right, at 11th floor, 2.62 million. When I compare with 11th floor of the 786 square feet, right, it's almost 300,000 difference already. And when we look at the layout, main difference is just the bedroom over here, and as well as the bigger living room. Okay, but for the bigger living room for the 872 square feet, actually a lot of them comes from the walkway space. Effectively, I'm paying more for this walkway space and a slightly bigger bedroom. But the price difference here, if it's more than 260,000, I cannot put this as my first choice already. Based on this, right, I actually changed my ranking. My 786 square feet becomes my first choice. And from here, I will plot this. I'll see what is the price gap to pay. Remember, Rivergreen and Promenade Peak, the price difference between a 2+ study and a 3-bedroom in the resale market in CCR usually is 400,000 to 500,000. In this case, I will set just as a safety, price gap should be at 300,000. Anything less than 300,000, I will buy the bigger unit. Anything more than 300,000, I will buy the smaller unit. We come back to the pricing that we see here. Rivergreen is my favorite layout, 786 square feet, so this will be my number one choice. When I map out the pricing, right, price difference cannot be more than 300,000. So Promenade Peak is my second choice in terms of the 764 square feet, because level to level you can see the price gap is actually only around 200,000. This is less than the 300,000 buffer that I set for myself. Therefore, Promenade Peak 764 square feet is my second choice. And as we progress, we can see, right, based on the price gap, the 786 square feet mid-floor is still my third choice. Instead of having Promenade Peak's 786 square feet, I will pick this unit first. Because between these two, if the price difference is 300,000 but I prefer this layout, right, I will go for Rivergreen first. Therefore, my order is like that. And then Promenade Peak will be my fourth choice. The price difference from here, let's say compared to Rivergreen, if it's more than 300,000, I will take this unit first. So we can see over here, level to level, right? Let's say for example at level 4 Promenade Peak, 2.17 million. When I compare it with a similar chart of Rivergreen, this is actually 2.52. Effectively, I have to pay 350,000 more to top up to a Rivergreen 3 bedrooms. Naturally, I'll pick the Promenade Peak 2+ study at 786 square feet first. Same thing goes for the 79 square feet. The price difference here is more than 300,000, so I will go for this unit first. Okay, so the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then from here, I'll move on to the Promenade Peak mid-floor. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you don't have such a system in place, right, then when it comes to booking day, especially when you go for the 2-bed 2-bath 2+ study, right, you will be very caught because you don't know what is the price point that you should enter. The simplest thing that you need to have in mind, right, is to take note of the price difference that you should pay. All these price difference should be very clear in your mind. And on top of that, you also have to juggle between the floor levels. Because a higher floor level here, maybe it can still be better choice compared to a mid-floor level over here. Once you map out all these pricings, right, when you have this order around here, then you'll be very clear on how should you sequence your choice. Okay, and this is something that I'm trying very hard to show here. It may not be very easy to understand. Once you know how much price difference to pay, you calculate in the PSF based on the floor level, right? Then you'll have a lot of clarity in terms of what to choose already. Okay, and for the AA3 square feet, once I touch 14th floor, I will skip already to the bigger 3-bedroom over at Promenade Peak. Moving on, so the last comparison that I will have between these two projects, right, will be the Rivergreen 4-bedroom at 980 square feet and the Promenade Peak 3-bedroom 1076 square feet and 1033 square feet. My thinking is that some people will not accept, especially for own stay 4 bedrooms at 980 square feet. I feel that I will consider looking at the 1000 plus square feet Promenade Peak 3-bedroom first. At a glance, right, I don't really like the 1033 square feet layout, and this will be the layout that you'll actually be seeing in the show flat lah. Why I don't really like this layout is because when I come in, straight away I see the living room, and then it will lead me to the dining, which is not very close to the kitchen, but that's okay because when you go to the show flat, you can see that at the kitchen, right, there's actually a sliding window that comes up. Then you can actually serve food to the balcony itself. So this part is very nice. But what I don't really like about this layout is the living room. Because when I sit here, I feel that I'm actually very close to the door and I can't really look out into the outside as well. Because usually the living room is located near to this side ma. But now here it becomes my dining instead. Unless I change this to be my living room and this to be my dining, which is also a little bit weird because it's quite far away from my kitchen. Based on all these 3 floor plans, right, this will be my number 3 layout. And then my number 1 layout will be the Promenade Peak 1076 square feet because there's separation between the living and the dining. And this is actually what I want. I want the living to be closer to the balcony. Also, they have the same sliding window that comes up from the kitchen over to this side. Effectively, I can also dine here. Coming from an own stay perspective, right, this will be my number 1 choice, followed by the Rivergreen 4 bedrooms at 980 square feet, and then my third choice will be Promenade Peak 1033 square feet. I will use this pricing and put it as my first choice when it comes to the price map. Over here, we are talking at a price point of about 2.6 to 3.3 million. My first choice, Promenade Peak at 1076 square feet, right? When we calculate the price, actually the pricing can be very close to the Rivergreen over here. So I top up another 80,000 more, okay, even though it's a 4 bedroom to 3 bedroom. By the end of the day, I get more space. I'm actually in a development that has bigger unit types lah. So at least I know that when I stay in Promenade Peak, right, even the 1 plus study, the 2 bedrooms are minimally around how much already. So maybe I might prefer the living environment more in Promenade Peak. And then followed by Rivergreen 980 square feet. So you can see, right, with a very similar price point, I will choose the better layout. For these choices here is quite straightforward as compared to the 2 bedrooms, which is very messy. Here, I will just rate 1076 square feet my first choice, then Rivergreen 980 square feet my second choice, and then Promenade Peak 1033 my third choice. It's quite similar when I go to the higher floor levels. So you can see over here, it's the same. When I hit a certain price range, for example, once my 1076 square feet hits 3.2 million, I will consider the bigger 3 bedroom, the premium 3 bedroom in Promenade Peak because the price range can be very close already. For Rivergreen, once I touch close to 3.2 million as well, I will skip. Okay, in fact for Promenade Peak, this one I also have to think very hard whether I want to proceed with this once I hit the higher floor levels. 3.2 million, once I'm touching close to that price point, I will skip to the bigger 3 bedrooms. And that's the end of the Rivergreen layout. The remaining will be the Promenade Peaks bigger 3 bedrooms, which is the Promenade Suites onwards lah. For here, if you want something more in-depth, you can refer to our Promenade Peak condo review. We have a separate one just for that. And if you want to go more in-depth into Rivergreen itself, tune into our Rivergreen project review. Here will be a summary of what I have spoken over at that video as well. Because over here, the units are above 44th floor ma. So naturally, when you want to buy here, you will also want to buy something with a better view. My first choice will be Stack 3. Even though I do not like the layout as much as Stack 10, because as I mentioned, people buying at this floor level, it will be for the views. Stack 10 potentially faces towards Zion Plot A, Grand Zion's units as well. To give myself that kind of assurance that I won't be blocked, I'll actually go for Stack 3. I've adjusted the pricing. Initial pricing, I was thinking that they will actually mark the price down for the higher floor 3 bedrooms, but it seems like based on the prices that they have released so far, we have to mark up the pricing. because they have a lot of confidence in their 3 bedrooms. My guesstimate around 3.5 to 3.9 million. It will be increased to pricing of about 3.6 to 4 million. Based on this, besides being able to choose the 3 bedroom premium over here, you might also be able to choose the high floor upper house 3 bedroom subject to unit availability, or you can also have a high floor Robertson Opus 3 plus study at 1023 square feet. Furthermore, this is 999 years lease. Or even the 3 bedrooms premium, the one with a very nice kitchen sliding window. Actually, we have done a review for upper house at Robertson Opus as well. Fast forward to the sections of the 3 bedroom and the 3 plus study and the 3 bedroom premium over here lah. So for the bigger units, we can only focus on Promenade Peak because Rivergreen mostly consists of the smaller units. Their bigger units is 980 square feet. But in this region, right, actually the 3 bedroom can make more also. I'll just show you some examples here. Martin Modern, 1012 square feet is a typical 3 bed 2 bath that we see over here. And they also have a bigger 3 bedrooms at 1399 square feet. We have a private lift, we have a much bigger living dining area, and we even have a junior master with a back entrance and a storeroom. This kind of size, naturally you have to pay more for this unit, correct? 1399 square feet, right? You can see that in terms of the profitability, they can actually do better than the 1012 square feet. And when they sell in the resale market, right, the per square foot can actually be even higher compared to the smaller 3 bedroom layout. What this shows is that there's actually a demand for people looking for 3 bedrooms here, especially the bigger ones for own stay. You can see that the bigger 3 bedrooms, they also are very competitive in terms of the annualized return when we compare with the smaller 3 bedroom layouts. And it is the same for Copa and Newton as well. The 3 bed 2 bath coming in here at 915 square feet compared to their 1098 square feet. Compared to the 915, right, you have a bigger master bedroom. Then you have a household shelter and a bigger kitchen as well. Generally, you can see that people are actually willing to pay a higher per square foot for the bigger unit. Okay, you can see over here 2008 for 1098 square feet versus 2006 per square foot for the smaller unit. So these are actually the bigger 3 bedrooms that perform better, which is also why you shouldn't rule out the 3 bedrooms, the bigger ones in Promenade Peak as well. Moving on to the 4 bedrooms, based on this developer at the higher floor levels, right, when it comes to the 3 bedrooms versus the 4 bedrooms, they actually have a higher markdown at the higher floor levels. But based on the prices released from developer, it's actually different. So we have readjusted the pricing. These are the references that you can use to so-called calculate the pricing for the 4 bedrooms and the 5 bedrooms in Promenade Peak. Since this is just based for the Promenade Peak itself, you can refer to our Promenade Peak review. And just to summarize and end up everything, generally for the smaller bedroom types, we will be focusing more on the Rivergreen. And then for the bigger bedroom types, we will be focusing more on the Promenade Peak. But we do think that the response for Rivergreen will be very hot. So in the event, let's say these units are taken up, don't jump straight to the 2 bedrooms in this case. Maybe you might want to consider the 1 plus study if the price is right. Okay, in terms of the rentals, I do think that Promenade Peak might be able to give you a better rental overall price compared to Rivergreen. In fact, these 2 projects remind me of 2 current projects that we currently have when we compare 𝑭𝒊𝒓𝒄 and Rivière. So Rivergreen and 𝑭𝒊𝒓𝒄 is very similar as Promenade Peak similar to Rivière. But the differences between these 2 products are lesser compared to 𝑭𝒊𝒓𝒄 versus Rivière. Some of you may be thinking, hey, should I wait for the last launch at Zion Plot A, which is from CDL, called Grand Zion? Because to be honest, they bought the land at a lower price. But there's no guarantee that they will sell it at a lower price also because of their service apartment. They have to charge higher rent to cover these service apartment costs. And they have to compete with their own project in terms of the rental. So even if you want to consider this project, it also depends on your queue. And what if your queue is bad for that project? Nobody knows, right? If you manage to get a good queue over here, I do suggest for you to go ahead with these projects. That's all for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!